Kind of hit on this issue of taxation, so let's talk a little bit about taxation. The one side is tax the rich, rebuild the middle class. Other side charges that you're offering tax breaks to the wealthy, tax breaks to corporations that ship jobs overseas. Honestly, what approach when it comes to taxation best benefits everyday Minnesotans, and which approach more quickly fuels economic upswing? Representative Nolan, can we start with you, please?
Yeah. First of all, if it's not known, it should be known that I spent the last 32 years of my life in business. I built my own business, a sawmill and a pallet factory business. I bought logs from the loggers throughout this district. I've delivered pallets to the manufacturers in this district. I know what it's like to build a business from the bottom up and create jobs. I know what it's like to have to meet a payroll. I know what it's like to have to finance a business. I know what it's like to have to comply with a wide range and a myriad of government rules and regulations. And would I like not to have to be obligated to do any of that? Well, yes, of course. But it's necessary. I don't mind telling you, in the sawmill business, before OSHA, there was nobody who could count to 10 on their fingers because they'd lost too many in the saws. In the Brainerd area, I remember when kids were 25 and 30 years old and their life was over for want of a little ventilation because their lungs were full of fiberglass. And now with OSHA, why, guess what? They're still making fiberglass boats and kids are able to retire. So when it comes to taxes, I'm fully supportive of things like investment tax credits for investing in new equipment and new machinery. I'm fully supportive of government programs to facilitate innovation and new business starts and entrepreneurship and new business activities. The Small Business Administration, for example, something we were able to take advantage of in creating our business, which, by the way, my children own that business today, and they're doing very nicely with it, with sawmills in Emily, Minnesota, and Reamer, Minnesota, and a pallet factory and supplying pallet parts, and they're doing quite well. But if we want to rebuild this middle class, we got to get away from this trickle-down theory, give more money to the super rich and the billionaires. We need to rebuild it from the bottom up. And that's why I disagree so vehemently with you on the need to provide more tax cuts for the super rich and your opposition to increasing the minimum wage. Beyond that, we need tax incentives to stop sending manufacturing overseas and headquarters overseas to escape taxation. It's time that the rich and the powerful who have benefited so much from the greatness of this country step up and start paying their fair share in the same way that working men and women in this country are paying more than their fair share.
Thank you, Congressman. In fairness, we'll give Mr. Mills, Mr. Sandman a minute and a half here, or 2.5, excuse me. Mr. Mills?
Oh, thank you. First of all, our tax code is way too complicated. The IRS is way too powerful, and they've been weaponized against the American people. We need a flatter, fairer tax code that benefits the middle class. We're talking about one deduction, automatic above the poverty line. And then we're talking one or two lower rates, and then deductions starting for charitable giving, mortgage interest, and also expenses for education. Not limited to those, but it has to be flatter, fair, it has to be budget neutral, and it has to be so simple you could fill it out on the back of a postcard and send it in, because we need a smaller IRS and a less complicated tax code. But we have to understand the economic engine of our part of Minnesota. Over 80% of all employers are small and medium-sized businesses that are taxed at the personal individual level. They're subchapter S, they're LLCs, they're sole proprietorships, they're partnerships. They pay taxes as individuals. And when they're paying a higher tax rate, 39.6%, and corporate America, Wall Street, is paying 35%, and they have armies of accountants and lawyers and CPAs, you know what? That's the reason why we have disproportionately, one of the reasons why we have disproportionately high unemployment in our part of Minnesota. You know, the numbers, for the state look good, but when we start picking apart what's happening in the 8th District, the Iron Range has 64% higher unemployment than the rest of the state. Brainerd and Grand Rapids in the last several months have topped out above 10% unemployment. And in Bemidji, yes, the outskirts of Bemidji are part of this district. They have topped out at above in the last several months, 10%. But that's not the real numbers there. We had a much higher rate of employment, participation in the employment market about 6 years ago. Thousands of our friends and neighbors have given up looking for work altogether, and we have underemployment. We have people working 2 or 3 or 4 part-time jobs, and we've talked about that, because they can't find a good paying or a higher paying job that fits their skill levels. And that's indicative of an economy that is not working, that is sputtering in fits and starts. And if we want to make sure our part of Minnesota has a great economy, we have to look at reigniting Main Street business from, again, Main Street up, not from Washington, D.C. or Wall Street on down. And we need to look at getting projects like Sandpiper going and making sure PolyMed is going. We know how to do it. We just have to go and do it.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. Mr. Sandman, your philosophical approach to taxation?
Well, I agree with Mr. Mills there. The IRS is a big monster out there lurking in the dark, waiting to strike. But where I'd start with that, I would start making sure that we get the money out of the corporations. Stop that subsidies. I could be wrong, but last I heard it was like $500 billion a year. Make the corporations start paying their taxes. $4 to $5 billion there. I believe in a strong tax base, but it doesn't need to come from the backs of the middle class. It doesn't need to come that way. We need to start looking at the top. They say the trickle-down effect. It doesn't trickle down at all. It only goes so far. So when you talk about taxes, yeah, we need a flat tax break that is fair for everyone. Everyone, not just the ones at the top. Then we can have some money that we can do some things here in Minnesota. We can redirect that money. If I'm elected, I'll do the best I can to redirect that money. We need to get the money out of government. We need to put it in the pockets of the people. That's you, my friends. That's you. Thank you.
Thank you. Congressman Nolan, 1 more minute on taxation, if you'd like.
Well, a couple things. Stewart, and a lot of people like to talk about the tax rates of 38% and 35%. Let's talk about reality. Recent tax study here in Minnesota found that the average person making $1 million or more is paying an effective rate of 13%, not 35 or 38%. And the average person making $30,000 to $50,000 a year is paying 31%. So the one who made $1 million's only got $870,000 left to get by on for the year, and the person making $30,000's only got $20,000 left to get by on for the year. Stewart, you made more money with the salary that your family pays you sitting here in an hour and a half than the minimum wage earner will make in a week. One of your fellow employees came up to me, and he did the math, and he found out he'd have to work for your company for 33 years to make what your family pays you in a year. The fact is, the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, and the tax policies are exacerbating and accelerating that, and in no small part responsible for that. And nobody is for penalizing the rich. On the contrary, we just want the rich and the powerful to pay their fair share, and we reject this trickle-down theory of economics. We support increasing minimum wages and living wages and rebuilding the middle class, because that's how you rebuild the promise of America.
Mr. Mills, I assume you'd want to respond to that?
Well, yes. At the very beginning, Representative Nolan was making a great case for tax reform. But then he started talking about our family's business. And yes, we have been successful. We do make a profit. That's the purpose of business. And, whether it is through profit or whether it is through your paycheck, anybody who is in business knows that that's an opportunity to reinvest back in your business, to sustain the jobs you currently have, and to create new ones. And that's our business model. That is Fleet Farm's business model. We work hard sweat of our brow. Sometimes we have calluses on our hands. They may get a little bit bloody at times, but then at the end of the day, we hope to make a profit and to pay ourselves good wages. But that's an opportunity to reinvest back in our business, and that is our entire business model. Again, we're not publicly traded. There's no venture capital money. There's no private equity money. What we've been able to do is make sure we're able to grow our business off of our own profits and off of our own wages and reinvesting those back in our business, and we make no apologies for it.
Mr. Sandman, any final thoughts on taxation?
We need to do the right thing. We need to do the right thing for the happiness and survival of the middle class. We need to get that money out of those corporations and have them start paying their fair share. Then we can look at funding some of our social programs that are out there. We need to start with the rich and bring it down. We pay enough taxes already. We don't need to burden ourselves with any more. Just having it be fair. Having it be fair for everyone.
Thank you, gentlemen.